Hello and welcome to Grand Rounds for the Minnesota Regional Spinal Cord Injury Model System, or MINSCIMS as we call it for short. Thank you all for joining us today. MINSCIMS is funded by the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research, or NIDILRR, to support innovative projects and research in the delivery, demonstration, and evaluation of medical, rehabilitation, vocational, and other services to meet the needs of individuals with spinal cord injury, brain injury, and also burn. Next slide, please. MINSCIMS represents an exciting partnership among the following Minnesota institutions: Courage Kenny Rehabilitation Institute in Minneapolis, Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Regions Hospital in St. Paul, and the University of Minnesota, also in Minneapolis. Next slide, please. Our community collaborators include Minnesota Spinal Cord Injury Association, Unite to Fight Paralysis, Get Up, Stand Up to Cure Paralysis, Paralyzed Veterans of America, United Spinal Association, and the North American Spinal Cord Injury Consortium. This system collectively provides a multidisciplinary continuum of care for people with spinal cord injury, including emergency medical, acute care, acute rehabilitation, and post-acute services. My name is Dr. Kimberly Mondin, and I will be the moderator for today's session. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Rehab Med at the University of Minnesota, and I'm the project director of the Minnesota Regional Spinal Cord Injury Model Systems. Next slide. A few housekeeping notes before we begin. The University of Minnesota has organized the CME for today's webinar. Please see the chat for information on how to record your attendance and claim CME credit for attending this webinar within 24 hours of the event. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the MINSCIMS website. To earn CME credit for today's presentation, please click on the link in the chat. Due to the number of registrants for today's webinar, we have placed phone lines on mute to reduce audio feedback. However, we welcome and encourage audience participation using the Q&A function. If you have technical or logistical questions, we ask that you please submit those in the chat to Dan Kelly. We also extend a huge thanks to those who work behind the scenes to make these webinars possible. Next slide. The title of today's presentation is Adaptive Sports, a Gateway to Independence for People with Spinal Cord Injury. Our speakers are Megan Welty and Ryan Trench. Megan Welty is a senior specialist at the Courage Kenny Rehabilitation Institute in Adaptive Sports and Recreation. Megan holds a recreation management degree from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. She joined Courage Kenny Sports and Recreation Department 10 years ago. She has over 20 years of experience in the recreation field in both the private and nonprofit sectors, starting off as a whitewater rafting guide in college. She is passionate about recreation, inclusion, excellence, and empowering others. Our second speaker, Ryan Trench, is a supervisor at Courage Kenny Rehabilitation Institute in Adaptive Sports and Recreation. He's a certified therapeutic recreation specialist who has worked in adaptive sports and recreation for over 8 years. Ryan has overseen multiple sports and recreation programs and events. He also works closely with Courage Kenny inpatient and outpatient therapy teams to introduce adaptive sports and recreation as part of the patient's rehab goals. Ryan firmly believes there is a sport or activity out there for everyone, and also in the importance of choice in recreation. On behalf of the MINSCIMS, we'd like to welcome you both and thank you for presenting today. Next slide. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Kim. Hi, my name is Megan Welty, and today, just for our disclosures, just want to make sure that you are all aware that the Courage Kenny Rehabilitation Institute's Adaptive Sports and Recreation Department is funded by the Allina Health Foundation and philanthropy. So today we're going to actually be chatting with you about who we are, what we do, give you a little bit of a background about what are adaptive sports, talk about the health benefits and some research, the barriers to participation for people, and what are those entry points for success. We're going to go into a little bit about what some of the community resources are out there, including an event that we have coming up called the Discover Abilities Expo. And then we get to my favorite part of actually chatting with Tracy Tabaka, who the person with lived experience, who she happens to have a spinal cord injury and is incredibly active. So can't wait to chat with her towards the end. And then we're going to open it up for question and answer and just get a chance to get to know all of you and any questions that you have about adaptive recreation and specifically for individuals with spinal cord injuries. And I do want to give a little bit of a caveat that our perspective on the presentation today is as community programmers. Like Kim said, my background is in recreation. I'm not a trained PT or PM&R physician, but just have a passion for getting people out and being active. So that is going to be kind of our main focus around the presentation today. So Courage Kenny Sports and Recreation is actually part of Allina Health, Courage Kenny Rehabilitation service line. So you can see on this slide here, there's a bunch of different parts to Courage Kenny and different departments. We actually sit in what's considered our community services bucket where that star is. And throughout the community services, the organization is funded by the Allina Health Foundation, but we also are supported by volunteers as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. Who we serve. So we serve individuals from ages 4 all the way up. Different diagnoses include cerebral palsy, traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury, spina bifida, stroke, autism. I mean, really, we have something available for everyone. And our activities range from very competitive wheelchair sports, many that you will see in the Paralympics this summer in Paris 2024, to also more of the recreational life sports, things that you can do throughout your lifetime and don't necessarily have to compete in. We also host a number of camps and clinics and tournaments and things throughout the year, in addition to our weekly programming. Much of our programming actually takes place at Courage Kenny in Golden Valley, and then also throughout the Twin Cities area. On the slide here, there's a picture of Rose Hollerman. Rose is actually, she's a member of Team USA Wheelchair Basketball. Got her start with Courage Kenny when she was young. She has a spinal cord, she experienced a bruise on her spinal cord in T10, T12. And as part of her rehabilitation process, she was actually introduced to swimming at Courage Center back in the day. And then from there, she tried sled hockey, track and field, archery, and eventually wheelchair basketball, where she now is a professional wheelchair basketball player in Spain and plays on the Women's USA wheelchair basketball team. We were just chatting before the presentation started that this women's team did a exhibition game during the NCAA women's national tournament over the weekend. So super awesome that Rose and our other athletes are able to be on that international stage. And she'll be competing in Paris in 2024 this summer. So all of our activities, we offer 17 different sports. In 2023, served around 532 athletes, with about 9% of those of individuals identifying of having a spinal cord injury as their primary disability. And with that, had the support of over 500 volunteers. All of our activities are supported by volunteer coaches, volunteer instructors that are trained through us and then help be able to facilitate the activities. They are truly much of the backbone of what we're able to do. So here's a list of our different, I wanted to go into what are adaptive sports. Adaptive sports can be both recreational or competitive. Many times there's the use of adaptive equipment, and Ryan will talk a little bit more about equipment later. And the rules are oftentimes modified. So for example, on sled hockey, they play in sleds with 2 little sticks instead of standing on their feet. Sitting volleyball is another example of that, where the athletes use a very similar volleyball surface, but are sitting on the floor. Wheelchair basketball is played in sport wheelchairs, and there's some modified rules as well, but they shoot the same level baskets, and they can still travel. And so some of the rules are the same. And then wheelchair rugby, instead of playing on turf, is actually played on a gym floor. So you can see how just a simple modification of the rules or the playing surfaces can make an activity more accessible and be considered adaptive. Oftentimes with adaptive sports, there's also use of a classification system. And especially at the Paralympic level, a classification system just levels the playing field. So individuals with similar abilities are competing against individuals with similar abilities. For team sports, they're oftentimes, most of the team sports, you can only have so many points on the court at a time. So everybody is assigned a point number based on their functional abilities. And that is so that teams are within even play of each other. Um, and so you'll see in track and field, for example, there's tons of different classifications, whether it's a seated athlete, an ambulatory athlete, or so even now including individuals with cognitive disabilities as well. So that classification system is really important to the competitiveness of adaptive sports. Some of the activities and sports actually even have minimal disability requirements. So for example, wheelchair basketball, you have to have some type of disability that impacts your lower limbs. In wheelchair rugby, you have to have be impacted in 3 out of 4 limbs. And so that is another thing that you'll often see, and something that we really help people explore and discover of what activities are available to them when it comes to those minimal disability requirements. But most importantly is that adaptive sports can serve as a continuation of the rehab process. Even just thinking about Rose Hollerman, she identifies that being participating in the sports was part of her rehab process as a young child with a spinal cord injury. And it was through this becoming an athlete that she was able to continue to regain more function and really understand how her body worked after her injury. And so we're excited to be able to chat with you about that today. So here's a list of all the different activities that we offer here at Courage County. Many of these activities we offer either like just a recreational activity, like rock climbing, or also there might be a more competitive component like our competitive swim team or wheelchair basketball. But truly there is something for everyone. And there's a chance to just get involved and to come out and just give it a try. So Courage Center and Courage County has had a long history of adaptive sports over the years and has really been a leader in competitive adaptive sports around the country for many years. So we're just really thrilled that we can continue that legacy and get people involved and continue to see some of our athletes even go on to that international stage and that Paralympic level. I think one important thing to note is that every single one of these programs has a pathway for people with a spinal cord injury to be able to participate independently. An example of that would be with alpine skiing and monoskiing. Individuals can learn how to monoski, which you can ride a lift independently, get up and off the snow independently, and ski. It's unbelievable. There's also wheelchair tennis is another really fun example of that, where really there's no modifications to the game of tennis except the individual that is using a wheelchair gets 2 bounces instead of 1 to hit the ball. And so you can play an ambulatory component, play against somebody that is ambulatory, and you're playing the same game. It's super fun. Now I'm going to actually hand it over to Ryan Trench to speak to the health benefits and research.
Thank you, Megan, and apologies for my voice. We'll see how it holds up throughout this presentation, but yeah, so like Megan said, I kind of want to frame it up in terms of, again, coming from a community program standpoint, these are things that we've observed. There's some research out there that exists. We'll talk a little bit more about research being an opportunity within adaptive sports for growth and for continuation. A lot of the research that I reference in the next couple slides comes from review of new research that's come out since 2018, which we have kind of cited at the end if anyone is interested in looking at that. But so why should people be involved in adaptive sports? And one of the big ones is health benefits. So starting with physical health benefits, there's studies that show a positive correlation between body mass index or body composition and regular long-term use or practice of wheelchair sports. So specifically in wheelchair sports for that study, but practicing or using equipment to participate in sports can have a good or it can have an effect on body composition in a positive way. It can increase strength and balance, which translates to a lot of different things in someone who has a spinal cord injury's life. It can translate to getting more familiar or identifying function within your body after an injury. Can translate to rehab goals and rehab processes. And then a lot of the benefits of physical activity, including cardiovascular and respiratory benefits, apply as well. So apply to adaptive sports and recreation. Those same well-known benefits apply to people with spinal cord injuries when participating in adaptive sports and recreation. Some of the psychosocial indicators has an extremely positive effect on community reintegration. I'm going to read a little bit of a section from a research or from the research review that says recent literature suggests that adaptive sports provide people with disabilities a sense of belonging, purpose, self-efficacy, confidence, freedom, autonomy, continuity, structure, hope, and motivation. Furthermore, besides recreational purposes alone, adaptive sports may help regulate mood and reduce stress. Adaptive athletes may use sports to hold on to pre-injury identity and may view new physical activities as transformative to their character. So really talking about like motivational existence and why people are identifying with what sport they're choosing to participate in. Some of this participating in adaptive sports and recreation can also lead to connections with family. Like Megan said, a lot of sports and recreation activities are translatable outside of playing on a team or on a court. And you can go and play with friends, play with family, play with neighbors. So kind of getting you back into the swing of things with family and friends. Quality of life is a big identifier for people who participate in adaptive recreation and sports. We see this in our own surveys and reviews of our programming at Courage Kenny. And studies are also saying that an increasing number of studies highlight improved quality of life for people with spinal cord injury and other disabilities through participation in adaptive sports and recreation. As I mentioned before, it can bring a sense of belonging, purpose, and leisure identity, as well as just increased strength and stamina, which again can translate into other areas of life. One of my favorite things that we have in one of our videos is someone talking about getting people off the couch. And so sports and recreation activities can provide an avenue for people to maintain or build a new sense of community through their participation in their sport of choosing, as well as building out peer support systems, finding people with similar interests that like to do things that you like to do. In studies, it shows that people that participate in adaptive sports and recreation opportunities have more chances to talk with peers about issues, other opportunities, resources that they've identified or come across, and are overall more successful in building peer communities. And again, getting out of the house, getting in outside in nature, using parks, using recreation areas, using outdoor facilities are all part of health benefits and things that are shown people who participate in adaptive sports and recreation do more. Next slide. Okay. So want to talk about some of the barriers to participating in adaptive sports and recreation, and specifically some of the things that we've done at Courage Kenny or in our department to identify and overcome or break down some of these barriers and get more people involved. So one of the big ones we hear a lot is cost and financial. Participating in programs or buying adaptive equipment can be daunting and expensive. People can be reestablishing or have a limited income after a spinal cord injury. And so one of the things that Courage Kenny has done is provide cost share scholarship programs to offset and mitigate the costs of participating in the programs. We also work a lot with families and participants to identify other resources outside of Courage Kenny that people can get grants to cover costs of purchasing equipment, the costs of travel, the costs of program fees, or adaptations. So a lot of resources that we try to help and hunt down for people. We'll go into equipment a little bit deeper in the next slide, but adaptive equipment is expensive, no matter how you slice it. As for a lot of people, this can be a barrier when they start looking or moving down the line of becoming more independent in their sport of their choosing. I think we've heard before, I don't want to learn how to do that because I'm never going to be able to afford that ski. I'm never going to be able to afford that bike that I want. So through that we've built out an extensive fleet of adaptive equipment, and again, can help people find resources for purchasing their own equipment, and give people an opportunity to try a lot of different items before they move to the next step. Physical location, transportation, time constraints of when people can participate. Proximity to the location or mode of transportation can be a massive part of people's willingness to participate in adaptive sports and recreation. Studies show that people that have access to a driver's license or to their own transportation are something like 6 times more likely to participate in adaptive sports and recreation. So what we've done is focused on running program throughout the metro area. We vary our offerings as much as we can around the metro area so that people can come to different locations where we have options for people to participate once here, once there, type of deal. Almost all of our locations that we do sports and recreation activities at are accessible via Metro Mobility. And then any of the programs that we run that involve equipment, we transport equipment to and from the location, loan it out to the person that is participating, or the equipment is housed on site. One of the a good example of time constraints, something we work through, is trying to find those ideal or the best times, preferred times to participate. We've recently changed some of our golf programming so that we have a golf program that happens during the day, in the afternoon, and at night. So we try to offer that varied programming so that we can catch people when they are able to come out and join us. Voice is going. Previous interest, skill level. So people who participated in sports and recreation at a high level prior to their injury may be less interested or less involved in participating at what they would perceive as a lower level, or it's something that has increased difficulty. So an example that I've heard is I used to ride 50 miles on my bike 3 times a week. So we have to work with participants and people that we're seeing to set new, realistic, and attainable goals. Some people may benefit from seeing the sport or activity performed at different levels. Some people may benefit from seeing the sport performed at the highest level, knowing that a return to previous form or something similar is possible. So we see that a lot. I show people or have people come to various different events based on what their goals are. So onset or cause of injury can be another barrier. How the injury happened or what happened, if it happened during a sports and recreation activity, and how that affects the choice of someone to participate. Some people that we see coming through sports and recreation are immediately ready and excited to get back to a sport or activity that they were injured while participating in. Some people are not. Some people will never want to do that sport again. So we're really just meeting people where they're at and identifying their interests and their ability to participate and going from there. One other one that's always good to touch on is we see some people that are worried about risk of further injury. So perceive that they are at risk or higher risk to injuries that might impact their activities of daily living, shoulder injuries, elbow injuries, falls, pressure injuries, wound management, are all things. So one of the things that we've done is, I mean, we are always asking people to consult their primary care physicians as well as their therapy team. But through sports and recreation, we've also tried to line up some avenues so that people have access to referrals and direct care through sports medicine doctors for sports related injuries. If someone has a shoulder injury from playing wheelchair basketball, we try to line up those resources for them, people who are a little bit more familiar with that type of activity. So those are some of the barriers that we see frequently, and some of the things we've tried to do to mitigate them. Next slide. So equipment's a big one, and I wanted to talk about it. One of the things that I mentioned is we've built out an extensive fleet of equipment. We probably have, if not one of the largest equipment inventories in the country for adaptive equipment. And as you can see, just by some simple examples, extremely expensive. We build out and we buy the best, newest, most up-to-date equipment that we possibly can, so that people have chances to use that equipment, A, to participate, and B, as they move through that progression of moving towards independence, they have a chance to try out multiple different models, multiple different examples. Way too often we see people that go out and buy equipment. They test out a hand cycle, they really like it, and they run out and buy something, and it might not work for them. So they, it might not be adjustable or might not fit the way they want it to. So it's really important for us to provide those options for people, so that they can be, certain in what they're getting. That's going to be a right fit for them. And again, working with people for a lot of grants, Kelly Brush Foundation, Challenge Athletes Fund, to name a few. That is something too that Megan and I are more than happy to provide that resource of a list of grants and people we've worked with in the past. Big challenge that I want to talk about a little bit, especially with this group, trying to get these pieces covered by waivers and insurance has been a challenge. We have had some success with co-treatment consults and recommendations from PTs, OTs, myself and members of our team making recommendations towards a certain piece of equipment, but not a lot. And there's not a lot of coverage for something that they deem recreational in nature, even if it's part of your rehab goals. So we've also run into who makes purchases based on recommendations. So something we can't currently do in sports and recreation, and further work needs to be done in this area. I've gotten prescriptions from doctors for one adult trike or one adult hand cycle. And at this point, we don't exactly know where to go with those. So that's something we're working on. Next slide. So really quick, just some down one more level. Some of the equipment we have specific to cycling, that is additional equipment that we can add on to bikes, trikes, other equipment that we're buying. So, you can see in the pictures a high back adjustable seat. There's some different styles of grips, grip extenders. There's what's called a quad grip or a wrist lock grip on the right-hand side. Even something as simple as that can be $250 per pair. And this is all stuff that we have over time purchased, found, bought. There's some things that we've custom designed or custom built. We've used things outside of their standard usage to get desired results. A lot of different pieces and additions we can make to equipment to make people successful. Next slide. I got a lot of slides. So want to talk about entry points and success, what works, or what's worked for us to get people involved in sports and recreation. I think one of the biggest indicators, and maybe Tracy will talk about this in a little bit here too, is early introduction. And if you work in a place that has a rec therapy team leaning on rec therapy interventions, the best time we can get people introduced to sports is right away after an injury. And when I say that, there's a lot of different ways to introduce adaptive sports to people. It's not, day 4 getting someone on a bike, but there's a lot of different ways to get to that point. In pre-injury interest in sports have been markers of success in getting people into meaningful participation after their injury. There's a lot of different ways, like I said, that this can be done. Equipment demos, trials, showing people videos, doing leisure interest surveys, and just having conversations about what's next and what are my options for sports and recreation. Those can all spark and activate interest, and then you can move from there. So I think a big one is knowing that adaptive sports and recreation are an option. That can be an extremely motivating tool for therapists and medical teams. Coming to this presentation is a super awesome start. If you've never heard of adaptive sports before, or you're looking for opportunities to learn more, learning more about equipment, sport-specific facilitation, and specialization of training can help you or your team build comfort, understanding, and confidence in referring someone out to sports and recreation programs. And then as Megan said, integrating sports and recreation leisure goals into therapy can be a huge one. The picture on the right there is a picture of a in-service training we did where we got PTs and OTs from the transitional rehab program here at Courage Kenny on bikes during lunch and just get them familiar with adaptations and got them out and riding around down in the basement. The biggest one is just awareness of how to find resources where they are, and leaving this meeting knowing that something or some options exist locally in Minnesota, in the Midwest. There's options everywhere. We have created some low barrier or low impact entry points. Some of these programs like bowling are what we would call feeder programs. They're a chance for us to get people involved in sports and recreation activities at a really low physical threshold, and provide them the tools to build for success from there. So connecting with local groups or advocacy support and education organizations, people establishing a community concept or contact are way more likely to participate in a sport with that community. So there's a lot of resources. There's people on this call and co-collaborators on this call that are great resources for people to get involved. Peer mentorship has shown a huge impact on willingness to participate in sports and recreation. And then for us, creating one-time access points can be an easier entry to activities as opposed to signing up for an entire session, an entire season, a series. And we frequently host discoverability clinics and demos, and then recreating or creating leisure identity so that someone can get back to being a golfer or being a skier. It goes a long way as well. Oh, next slide, sorry. I just wanted to, I'll go through this really quick and get it back to Megan, but this was an example that came up for me of resources similar to this group of resources coming together for a common goal or a common theme. I just came back from this event. It's National Disabled Veterans Winter Sports Clinic. It's a collaboration between VA Medical Center and Disabled American Veterans. And 400 veterans, 200 instructors, people coming from all over the place. And the common goal or the common theme of it is that this event or this option exists, and it's a great place for people to learn more. So everyone you talked to at this event had heard about this from PTs, OTs, doctors, nurses, rec therapists, support teams, caregivers. And because everyone within the VA medical system is aware of, or at least has some idea of what these National Disabled Veterans programs are, it is just a shared common goal to get people out there. And it really just kind of hammered home what a great example of what happens when you bring together all of these resources with one goal, and the power of working together, similar to how this group is working together to share resources and knowledge. Knowing that these programs exist goes a long way in referring people to them. Next slide. I think I'm going to go back to Megan.
Thank you, Ryan. You rocked it. Hopefully still have a little bit of a voice. So ultimately, what Ryan talked about is community resources. And I think that is the heart of Courage Kenny and this adaptive sports program, is wanting to be a community resource for people by providing those adaptive equipment loans and assessments for people that are looking to purchase equipment, figure out what works for them. Also, what are those grant opportunities that are out there? And there's so many different individual grants for equipment. Sometimes there's also grants for travel to help with that barrier and the financial barrier and cost to competing in adaptive sports. So that's where we really do that research and be able to help provide that for folks. And then building a connection to other community organizations. If we don't know what it is or don't do it, we probably know somebody that does. So for example, sled hockey is run by the Minnesota Sled Hockey Association, and we are constantly referring people back and forth. And so I think the ultimate goal and the thing that we all get excited about is when somebody participates, and that might be participating with another organization, or might be participating with a program of one of ours, but we just want folks to get out there and to be active. And so one of the things that we've done is developed, and I'll talk about it a little bit more on this next slide, is the Discover Abilities Resource Expo. And at that expo, it's a resource for all the different organizations that provide any sort of adaptive recreation or sport. The other thing is we have built a network with other adaptive sport organizations around the country. And so what's so fun is many of us provide similar opportunities. And so, or there's camps or clinics or national trainings where we're constantly sharing resources with other programs and learning from other programs and seeking what is that industry standard. And I think something else to note is that these resources are not just for patients within the Allina Health system. You do not have to be an Allina Health patient or receive any other services at Allina Health in order to participate in the Adaptive Sports and Recreation Department. I kind of explain it to some folks like, consider us like a community ed program. Kind of where you can go and you can sign up for an activity. You don't necessarily have to live in that community, but you can still participate and get to know what's out there. So many of the participants in our programs might receive their healthcare at other organizations. So an event that we have coming up that I just referenced is the Discover Abilities Expo. It's on April 20th at the University of Minnesota Recreation and Wellness Center. We are so excited to bring this event back. The last time we had it in person was 2019. And to date, we have over 650 people that have RSVP'd and 65 different organizations that are going to be there, highlighting the things that they do. Many of them either provide a sports program, a recreational program, there might be theater, arts, dance, or they just provide advocacy and resources, like the Minnesota Spinal Cord Injury Association or GUSU and some of the other collaborating partners on this call. So we're super pumped about it. We really hope that you can join us. We designed this event to be that like catch-all for folks. We've really found that individuals that, those barriers to participation need to hear about programs multiple times or just don't know where to look and what is out there. So this is a chance where we're going to have all those organizations in one spot for folks to come and meet the people that are providing these activities, get to know them, feel comfortable, even try out some of the equipment, and hopefully participate. And for all of you and for the healthcare professionals out there, this is your chance to fill up your own tool belt, to find out what are those resources that are out there, so that when you are chatting with folks in your clinics, and you can talk to them about, hey, maybe, have you ever considered trying sled hockey? Or, gosh, I just heard about scuba diving and it is like the ultimate freedom in the water. Come, you check out this organization, Free Adaptive or Midwest School of Diving. There's so many different opportunities. One of the things I'm really excited about is our aquatics and fitness team is going to be doing some cardio drumming. There's also going to be adaptive yoga. So please come and join us. The link is on the slide here. And we're just really excited. It's going to be a full day of fun. With the Discoverabilities Expo, we've developed the Discoverabilities Resource Guide, which is basically just a list of all the organizations that are attending the Expo. And this list lives online, so it can be accessed anytime past the event. It's organized by categories, so it's pretty easy to find. If you're interested in dance, you can pretty easily, click on dance and find the different organizations around town that provide adaptive dance or inclusive dance. And so if you are looking at the resource guide and you don't see something and you're interested in a certain activity or something like that, reach out to us. We might know of something or can help you find that resource. We want to be here for you and support your own journey on recreation or helping your clients and patients find recreation. And I just want to note too that this is just one resource guide. I know there's many other ones, including like the GUSU one, the Minnesota Disability Hub. There's so many awesome resources out there. And so that again is another reason why we just developed that Discoverabilities Expo. So you can come to that and learn about all those opportunities that are out there in the Minnesota area. Now, I'm super excited to introduce you all to Tracy. Tracy Tabaka is an outdoor enthusiast and wheelchair user, but she's also passionate about creating nature-based opportunities for people of all abilities. She currently works as a staff member at Three Rivers Park District's Outdoor Recreation School, where she gets to share her passion of the outdoors with others. But in her free time, she loves to camp and bike and swim and travel with her husband and 2 kids and the dog and cat. So I'm going to share a little bit of a video about Tracy and her husband, Sam, and what they like to do for fun. And then we'll get a chance to ask Tracy some questions.
Sam and I met at the Courage County Monoski ski camp in Duluth. I was one of the instructors for the race camp portion, and Sam was one of the participants there.
The first activity that I did after my injury was the Courage County ski program. So that's when I was 14 years old. So that was a long time ago. So I've been participating for many, many, many years.
I started with sports and recreation with Courage when I was probably 18. And starting a water ski program with them was one of the best things I've ever done. And once you're involved in one of their activities, it snowballs, and you think to yourself, wow, if I can do this, I could do anything, And so Courage has been a huge part of our lives and what we've accomplished. When we first started dating, we started doing a lot of triathlon events together. We've done several marathons. We bike with our kids, we ski with our kids. We do a lot of camping around the country because we want them to appreciate what exercise does for your body physically and mentally, and being outside too.
We try to be active year-round. Cross-country skiing has been something that we've really enjoyed.
Our kids both play hockey, and Sam and I have played sled hockey before the kids were born, so we are kind of trying to get back out there to be able to play out on the ice with them as well. We ride bikes as a family all over the country. When we go camping, we take our bikes, and that's one of the cool things that we can say we did in this particular state is we rode this trail.
And we do a lot of riding right around our house too. We've got some really great trails, and it's just one of our weekend things. We just go out for a bike ride, and we just really enjoy being out on the trails.
I think the health benefits are huge for us as wheelchair users, staying active, staying healthy, and enjoying the outdoors. We love being outside. We want our kids to love being outside. We want them to appreciate nature. This is what we love. This is our passion. Courage Kenny changed my life dramatically. It made me realize that I was able to do things that I never thought I could do.
All right, well, welcome, Tracy. So glad that you can join us today. Thank you so much. And I was just listening to that last slide or your last statement of courage, Kenny could change my life dramatically. But for tonight, or for this afternoon's purpose, we can change that to adaptive sports changed my life.
Correct. Yes.
So
Yes.
just super excited to have you be a part of our conversation today. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, and even if you're comfortable just sharing your level of spinal cord injury?
Yeah, so I was injured in a car accident when I was 8. I am an L2, L3 para. And yeah, so starting out when I was 8 years old, I didn't necessarily have a ton of options for things. I was really good at school and reading and things like that. But as I grew up, I started to realize, maybe I could try this, or maybe I could try this. My brother was a wakeboarder, and I was really jealous. It was it was hard to watch him do things like that and me just sit in the boat. So that's kind of where my journey began with courage.
So how did you first get introduced to adaptive sports?
After watching my brother wakeboarding, I got online and I was like, man, there's got to be something I can do. I knew of wheelchair basketball and I tried it, but I wasn't very good at it, and basketball's not really my thing. So I started looking around and I ended up finding the Courage water ski program. And I went and I met some amazing volunteers. And they made it so fun, and I picked it up really quickly. And they said, wow, if you can do this, you should come and try snow skiing with us. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that. And eventually I did. And I loved snow skiing. And the programs, like I said in the video, they just kind of snowball from there. I tried, I had tried basketball previously, but I tried tennis and I tried wheelchair softball and a whole bunch of other things. Because I loved the feeling of being able to do stuff.
That's awesome. So what kind of activities do you like to do today to stay active?
So today, my kids are now 13 and 10. So they are very into their specific sports. So Sam and I do a lot of chauffeuring. But we also stay active with biking. I swim 3 times a week. We take a lot of walks. We do a lot of geocaching. A lot of things with our programs throughout the park district, Three Rivers. Sam sets up geocaching courses for the park district, and so we as a family go and check those out, try them out, and spend a lot of time geocaching around the country. And we do a lot of camping and a lot of nature hikes around different places around the country. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a shift since, the kids have gotten a little bit older and they're more into their own things. And whereas, 20 years ago, I was ski racing full time, but I really enjoy where I'm at right now.
That's awesome. I was going to say ski racing and doing marathons. I mean, Tracy, you have done it all.
I've enjoyed a lot.
Yeah. And thinking back on those experiences and both recreationally and also competitively, like how have those sports played an important role in your life?
That has been a huge part of my life. Ever since that first day that I did water skiing with Courage, it just opened my eyes to so many things. It showed me that there's so much more in life that I can do and I can really be passionate about and enjoy. And the biggest thing that I think it did for me was put me into that role as an employee of Three Rivers to be able to offer those experiences to other people. I really enjoy that part about my job, to be able to talk with rec therapists and talk with other staff of other programs and even staff of Three Rivers and give presentations with my team and be able to show people that individuals with disabilities have a lot of opportunities for things. Those opportunities are out there. And I love seeing somebody come to one of our programs as a brand new person, a brand new, newly injured person, and watching them experience that for the first time and have that same aha moment that I had where it's like, wait a minute, I can do this. I really like this. Wait, what else do you have? And we get a lot of participants who come into those gateway programs and then end up in all of our programs. Sam and I are both peer mentors as well for patients with spinal cord injuries, and being able to talk to people. I just spoke with a lady and her husband the other day, and they were big campers. And I said, well, Sam and I still camp. I mean, we love it. You'll get back to that. You may not see it right now today, but you'll get back to that if that's what you loved. So that's been very beneficial for me, not only being in the sports and activities, but also sharing that with others.
Yeah, it's become your career and something that you get to do every day. Oh, that's so great.
Yes.
So today we have an audience that's made up of healthcare professionals, there's researchers, community members, some who even have their own lived experience of having a spinal cord injury. What do you want to leave them with today?
The biggest takeaway I would say is, as a rec therapist or as somebody who works with people with disabilities, check out those things like the Abilities Expo, talk to people like you and me from organizations, really be aware of what is out there, because there's a big difference between when a patient leaves the hospital knowing basic wheelchair skills and when a patient leaves the hospital knowing what type of opportunities are out there for them, even if they're not necessarily ready at that time when they leave the hospital to go out and try or experience those things. Some patients need a little bit more time, but just having that in the back of their mind is key. Is key for physical health, it's key for mental and emotional health as well. So really, really researching those things and making sure that your patients have all of those opportunities or suggestions, or maybe they got to try a bike while they were in the hospital, or they got to try shooting archery or doing something that they loved before, or maybe are interested in now. I think is is very, very, very beneficial.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Tracy. That is a perfect segue into our kind of final slide today of our call to action. So just give me one moment to share my screen again. So we hope that, those of you that joined us today, first, thank you. That coming to a presentation like this is definitely the first step. And we challenge you to continue to create space for recreation, both in the inpatient setting, in your own therapies, in your daily lives. We all know that physical and social, we all know the physical and social benefits of play. So let's get out there and play. Second, get involved, become a volunteer or participate in one of these organizations. There's so many different opportunities out there. And whether it's becoming a peer mentor or a downhill ski instructor, we encourage you to get involved in your community and be willing to try something new. And then, like Tracy said, get to know what resources are available. Attend events like the Discover Abilities Expo. Continue to attend the grand rounds, chat with each other, reach out to us, give us a call. We would love to connect with you further. And then I think Ryan mentioned this, there's so many more opportunities for research when it comes to adaptive sports and recreation, and specifically for individuals with spinal cord injuries. So if there's opportunities to participate in research or even facilitate research, please seek those opportunities out. And the more research that is done around the benefits of adaptive sports, hopefully we can continue to break through some of those barriers, especially the financial barriers. And then
thank you so much. We're getting close to the end of the hour here. I see lots of activity in the chat and the Q&A. And Ryan, it looks like you're answering some of those questions, so I appreciate that. If we didn't get to any of the questions in the chat, please feel free to reach out to our presenters. It looks like they have their email address up there right now. If you want to quickly screenshot that or jot that down, that would be fantastic. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us today for this grand rounds on a fantastic topic that I know many of the individuals that we work with, that we serve, individuals with spinal cord injury, are very passionate about this topic and want this information. So we really appreciate you coming to our grand rounds and presenting today. And for those who are looking for CME credit or need CME credit, again, Dan will put that information in the chat. And Megan, I cut you off. I'm sorry. Just want to respect people's time. But did you have one last thought you wanted to share?
This is it. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to come and speak with you today. We hope to see you at the Discover Abilities Expo on April 20th.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you so much. Take care. Have a great day.